you know what? You're a meth addict. I might be a foodie, but, I don't think I have a problem like you do.
I'd say work your own program. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome to the Position Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Grogan, but you guys already know that. And I'm really excited because we have some friends of mine joining us today. We have Zach Carter and we have Hephzibah. He actually has another name and he'll explain what that is in a minute and I'll give him a moment. But we have a great program for you guys today and we're Position Recovery. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for introductions. Zach, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would like to. I'm Zach, as Jeremy already said. When it comes to recovery, I've been doing the recovery for quite some time. We were talking about that earlier. For me, it's probably been like 5 years. But I've been mainly overcoming. I like to use that word overcoming because I'm not currently struggling with. I've overcome it.
Amen.
Pornography. And that, a lot that happens with pornography is a lot of self-image issues as well, extreme self-hatred, stuff like that, and some religion as well in my life. But my wheelhouse has been recovery. Wheelhouse has been, recovery though, that's correct.
Zach did everything that you could do. Zach did it.
All the recovery.
Everything.
So, no, still on a journey.
It's called sin.
No. Yeah, right. But pornography has definitely been something that I've definitely grabbed by the horns and been the biggest thing for me to deal with in my life. I'm real quick. I'm really thankful for my growing up. I was not exposed to drugs or alcohol. I've never ever tried drugs or alcohol, but right?
Lucky
Isn't that?
you.
I know. I'm so blessed. More and more I'm around people. I'm like, man, I had such a great growing up, even though I have my own struggles, obviously. But one thing I've really learned is that we all have something in common. Like, it's crazy how much, because I'll get into this more later, but there's so much we have in common, even though we all have struggled with different things. So, and it doesn't all look the same.
Absolutely.
But we all have in a way, the same outcomes and the same issues at the end of the day.
Awesome.
But
thanks, Zach.
Totally. Go.
And we have, we call Chris Hephzibah, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself a little bit. Tell the guest or the viewers just a little bit in some few words what that even means.
Hephzibah means the Lord takes delight in me. And it's just something that I grabbed a hold of when I found out who I am in Christ, part of my identity as a son. So I just grabbed a hold of it, and now it's kind of catching on.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And what's your MO, Chris? What's your drug of choice? Or
Oh, man, well, more.
More.
No, but I struggled with alcohol and methamphetamine, marijuana, but dabbled in a little bit of everything except for heroin. I never got into heroin, but thank God, because, like all the other drugs, I probably would have struggled with that too if I would have tried
absolutely.
it. But overcome meth addiction, alcohol, and marijuana. Been clean for 2 years, 3 months, and 10 days.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we have a great show for you today. We're new to this as far as a podcast, so I think that I encourage you guys to download this, get this on your phone. If you can't listen to it all in one sitting, we're going to be putting the separate videos on YouTube, but we're going to be available on all the podcasting services as soon as possible. So I do want to say you can watch us on YouTube. Go search Positioned Recovery on YouTube. You literally just go search for that. You can listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms, and also consider becoming a member. Go to patreon.com/positioned. Dude, I always say this, like, you know how cool it is to have patreon.com /positioned. I own that. I have that.
We can, how you say you can catch us on all your favorite streaming platforms or whatever, or podcasts. We also, you can catch us on all your least favorite ones as well.
Yeah, sure. Today, here's how it's going to work. For those of you that are connected to the Position Recovery community and even our local faith community here, we realize that there are 12 months in a year and there happen to be 12 steps.
What?
Dude, seriously, isn't that crazy?
Since when?
So that makes it really convenient for us to, as ministries, and to be able to kind of use that as a backdrop to our content. So for the whole month of February, we're going to be dealing with the principle hope, and we'll be dealing with step number 2. And so our first segment today is going to be, we're going to talk about step number 2. And then we have a very interesting topic I want to bring up. We'll go into some detail on it, but we're basically going to be talking about the effects of social media or media on, like, the consumption of this on our sobriety or our spirituality. And after that, we'll take a short break, but then we will come back for a really exciting news segment. And let me see, I don't want to give it away.
It's about the weather.
But we are going to talk about a concept called digital rehab.
What?
Ooh, isn't that exciting? What? I don't want to give it away. I just gave it away. But we will talk about digital rehab. And that is I have a news article I want to talk about. And then we have, for our second main segment, being our first podcast, which is actually podcast number 0. I'm going to let the boys at the table, actually they're men, but we can call them whatever. We will come up with something, and then we will end with the daily reflection. So let's go to step number 2. I believe Chris can just recite it. For some reason, I'm going to go to the book here. Chris, would you like to tell us step 2?
Is that the one came to believe?
I just remember the last time we did this, I was looking in the book, and you said it, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity?
Yes. And I'm gonna confirm that.
Yeah. Fact check real quick here.
I'm the fact checker here, guys.
Step number 1's that we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and our lives have become unmanageable.
I'm getting some help here, and this is just a little plug on Celebrate Recovery, which is a great program. And here, by the way, for everybody that you join, you're listening now, we're not necessarily particular on any specific program. I would say Chris is here kind of representing the NA side of recovery. I'm here representing the AA side. Zach is representing all the other sides. Other sides. Because we're all faith-based.
We are all faith-based.
Zach,
that's all I've ever known, though, is faith-based recovery.
So
that's my advantage.
Step number 2 in the Celebrate Recovery book says, well, that's the 8 principles. So we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Got it right.
So Chris got it right. There is a scripture reference that we may go into, but I want to kind of hang our hat here for a moment. And just, I think that, especially in early recovery, this can be a hard spot, especially when I look back on my recovery. I was an atheist. I was from a death metal, heavy metal scene, right? Godless, anti-God, anti-Christianity. In fact, most AA meetings when I started were in a church, and it was hard enough for me to even walk through the door. So I think, if you've caught us and you're watching this video, I think that language might speak to some of you. How do we get from that to the next level? And so step 2 says we came to believe that a power, it doesn't say God, Yahweh, Christ, it just says a God, higher power, could restore us to sanity. So I think this is a really good spot to turn over to Chris. Can you tell us a little bit about this change that you went from step 1, where you admitted that you had powerless over your addiction, but then you moved into not necessarily Christ as your higher power, but the possibility that there was even a higher power?
Well, for me, I always believed in God. I've had some situations in my life where I couldn't explain what happened or how it happened. So I just believed that was God. And then, so that's where my belief come from. I just always believed in God. But when I finally started getting some good recovery, I was at the end of my rope at that point, you know what I mean? So it was to do something different is where it all started. Just became willing to give it a shot. And man, I don't even know. It's just one of those things where it's hard to explain what happened.
Yeah.
But it just, over a period of time, I was introduced to coming to morning worship and coming to church on Sundays. But if in the NA fellowship, if I was going to have a higher power, I wanted my higher power to be God and Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Zach? You got, like, I know that you have been, like, you were raised in the church, and we would have never been friends in my whole life, dude. I would have been, like, you know. But I guess for you, how would you relate this to recovery? I'm actually, I'm interested because I come from a whole different, I come from an atheist point of view.
Yeah.
You actually were in your addiction in Christianity.
Yeah. So you got to flip the script. For me, it was the other way around. I didn't struggle with understanding that my higher power could restore me to sanity. It was the other way. It was understanding that I wasn't in sanity.
Wow.
And so my story is more of when I met my wife and my spiritual brothers and sisters, mentors, you name it, Holly, Jeremy Gramman, and the whole Gramman family, and really all you guys. I was thrusted into recovery because honestly, I was after more in my life,
that's right.
more
I
of
remember
God,
that.
and I followed Haley to recovery. Honestly, my wife, and being there, my mindset was, these people struggle. Like these are what we would say. Like these are those people. From my world, these are the people that I don't associate myself with because they have big problems, nothing like my problems. I don't really have problems like they do, right?
Totally.
But obviously I learned, it didn't even take years, it took like weeks, that I couldn't have been more wrong. I had just as many issues, in different ways, exactly the same, just
Started
different backgrounds.
Noticing the similarities instead of the differences.
Honestly, when it comes down to it, again, like I said, I didn't struggle with understanding that there was a higher power that could restore me to sanity. It was God showing me that I'm not okay. I knew I wasn't okay. I didn't realize that he was like, no, you don't understand. Like, you are with, like, we say in Christianity that God left the 99 to find the one. Like, he's like, dude, you are the one. You're no longer part of the 99.
Absolutely.
And so, and I'm like, oof, okay. So, but really, like, for all of us, we all struggle with different addictions in different ways. But they're all from the same thing.
Sure.
They're all because we're trying to fill a void. And we're just manifesting that or acting out in a different way.
I could agree with that.
And so that's where I came in, was literally flip the script. Like, it wasn't that,
So what would you guys say to viewers? Okay, this is really cool. I like that we're on this little angle. Because there's a lot of family members I have that I think would say those people too. They'd be like, well, I'm not one of those people. In fact, they probably wouldn't even watch my YouTube videos or even listen to this podcast, because they'd say, those are for those people. Well, what would we say? So somebody's watching this or listening to this right now, and they have family members who are like that.
Yeah. What
would you say to people on how can we influence people? I'm asking this question. So how can we influence other people or I guess just influence people to maybe consider that they're not they're part of the them and those.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that hit me, because this is what really started those stair steps for me to getting to a place where I'm like, hey, y'all are different than I am, like very Texas sounding, but was that, first of all, when I was when we were doing Sobriety recovery and stuff like that, we didn't say it was for people that had problems with addictions. XYZ addictions. It was It was hurts, habits, and hangups.
Yeah,
hurts, habits, and hangups. And I was like, wow, I have hurts, I have habits. Doesn't mean it's sinful, but I have habits and I have hangups that I might want to change in my life, and that obviously steers away from it having to be meth, having to be heroin. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It's everything. We have people we deal with that have food addictions. We have people that we deal with that aren't even sinful things like Netflix, but it's still an addiction. And it's still all the same process to get past that. But then also the other thing I was told was that if you're not in recovery, you're in denial. Yeah. As a church.
Absolutely.
As a church. And so that was some of the biggest, at least like one-liners is what we would call them, that hit me, where I'm like, dude, I've been looking at this the completely wrong angle. So, you have anything you want to add?
Well, here, Chris, I got a specific question for you. So what about the person that says, you know what, I'll admit, I'll go as far to say, I probably eat too much food, but that's nothing like that guy, and he's a meth user. What would you say? Like, I'm sure there's a version of you that would say that would address that in a different way, maybe in your past. But how would you address that now that you're more mature? What would you say to that person if they confronted you and said, you know what, you're a meth addict. I might be a foodie, but I don't think I have a problem like you do.
I'd say work your own program.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
That's what I would say. Like, I don't know if that's even the part of the old me or the new me, but, you know, labeling one problem worse than the other is just something that I don't do anymore.
Yeah. But not just for you, but like, here's what I'm thinking. The other person has got to be in such a place of denial. Like,
Exactly.
how did we get out of that? Because we were all there. Yeah. Dude, when I was in my peak of my alcohol addiction, I guarantee you, before I came to believe that I was unmanageable and all that, there's got to be people that were like, God has got to get a hold of this guy or he's going to die. Like,
and that very well may be true. You know what I mean? When you're partnering with the enemy, the God's hand to protect, he can only go so far.
Yeah.
Really. So
I've actually had conversations with people before because, again, my realm of influence, especially where I work at too, at the jobs I have, I get more of the people that are like, psh, look at that homeless guy, he's XYZ, they're just doing this, they're just doing that, it's awful, and and they're like, I've never struggled with that. The worst thing I ever had is I just can't stop eating food, for example, stuff like that.
And the guy's 300 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, they're struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. You're just tackling that with food.
Absolutely.
They found a drug, unfortunately, that works for them. And honestly, we all end up coping. It's all coping. It's all coping mechanisms, holding down pain, trauma, cycles of addiction, and
it's all just manifests in different ways. But,
yeah.
For me, it was like focus on myself. Don't start looking at what everybody else is doing, because then the focus is automatically already off of me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
comparison.
Yeah, recovery, if you want to get anywhere in that, you got to look at yourself. It's all about self. And, in the beginning, it is a selfish program that you have to run. And then as you get further into that, you become selfless.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not that you think less of yourself.
Yeah.
But you think of yourself less.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely. Let's shift gears here. I've got the main topic that I want to talk about today, and this is something that's been brewing in me for a little while. It's actually kind of one of the catalysts to start doing this podcast and to really reach out through social media. And fundamentally, the topic we're going to talk about is kind of why I felt like I was being led into the recovery social media space, because it is absolutely undervalued right now, and it is under occupied, if there's no better way to say it. So the question, it's not really a question, I just want to bring up the topic. Here's what we're talking about. What are the effects of social media content consumption on one's sobriety or spirituality? And to go really further in that, what I'm really talking about is like, because when you go to YouTube, and I'm subscribed to all this stuff that's not recovery related, right? I really wish there was a lot of entertainment driven value or news available, for me to be connected to, because I feel like what we're connected to is what drives our thoughts, and what drives our thoughts is what drives our behaviors. And that, no one's really going to argue that. So what I want to know is everybody's thoughts on a couple of things. What do you guys think is keeping people from either producing content like what I'm trying to do or what we're trying to do? And what are they watching? And is that having an impact on their sobriety and their spirituality? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I would say, I don't know why there isn't. Maybe it just hasn't, been drummed up. We're like the guinea pigs in the in the thing. But what I do want to talk about on this subject is what you're spending your time doing is going to reflect.
Totally.
So if you're watching negative stuff, then you're probably going to be having some negative behaviors.
Yeah.
I know, anytime I share, I want to speak for myself. I'm not talking about anybody else but me. Mm-hmm. There were some peers early in recovery, I just noticed, like on Facebook, stuff that they're putting out there which means that that's the stuff they're watching, and they're posting and reposting and doing this and that. And there's been some that I have blocked because I don't want to see that content.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely.
So it was negative for me, and I didn't want to be going in that direction, so I blocked them.
Good for you, man.
And for myself, I spend a lot of time watching a lot of positive stuff on identity, who I am in Christ.
Yeah.
Just positive things.
So what about, okay, so I'm hoping that people that maybe aren't of the same religious concepts that I am, let's say somebody's watching this, they're not a Christian, but they've made it this far, and I don't want to drive anybody away. So what would we say, are there things that are keeping people back that maybe don't subscribe to Christianity, that maybe they could make some alterations? Maybe they're just not, they don't buy into Christianity yet, they don't understand that part. Is there anything, Zach, I'll turn it over to you. What would you say to somebody who says, I'm an atheist, I enjoy recovery, and I know that there's a lot of spirituality around it. I'm just not there yet, but I'm not tuning out. What would you tell them to help connect them a little bit more to that concept of not basically feeding your brain a bunch of garbage?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to my head is the saying we say to everyone, it doesn't matter what type of background you have, but connection is the opposite of addiction.
Yeah.
And honestly, what you're connected to, this may sound churchy, but it's everywhere. What you're connected to is what you worship. And so just like what Chris is saying, you kind of end up becoming what you feed yourself on.
Yeah.
And so, but I was also going to tackle a part of that question you had, which was, why don't we see recovery in media? Like, why don't we see it? Why isn't it pushed? Because,
or even in the mainstream, if you wanted to say it like that.
Or in the mainstream, because what we've seen is just our culture and kind of almost inherently baked into the fundamentals of recovery as we know it is the idea of we don't talk about it. So that's AA, anonymous. This is a single group, which the reason why they did that was actually a really awesome reason, because it created a safe place.
Agree with that.
I'm 100% on board with that. But what we've also found is that if you just don't ever talk about your recovery and no one else knows that you're in recovery besides the people you're in recovery with, then there's no testimony there. There's no actual, what I would say, fruitful transformation, because then you're just a mystery. No one knows you. And just back to that same thing, connection's opposite of addiction. So me changing my life, part of my fruit, that's what I call it, fruit. Part of when I change my life, I want others to know that not just know that my life's changed, but I want them to know that it's possible if they have anything they want to have changed in their life. It's totally doable, because guess what? Somehow my life changed.
Well, and in a way, don't you think that by the groups kind of self-isolating? Now, I agree with you. I think we should have a safe place to die, or a safe place to confess things. But do you think that if that's like where my recovery exists, that I'm self-fulfilling the prophecy that there's those in them? Yep. I'm almost creating those space.
Exactly.
So for me to be a little bit more open about it actually brings in the idea of we as opposed to them and they.
Yeah, exactly. And all that media has said, pretty much all that we hear out there, is recovery is associated with what you see on the news, homeless people.
Yeah.
Homeless people is associated with recovery.
Those people.
Which is those people. Homeless people to everyone else out there are those people. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And so that's what we find the vein in. So that's why you don't see local news networks cover it. That's why you don't see anyone cover it. But also that's also combined with the fact that people that are in recovery, people that are diehard in recovery and trying to get clean and sober, they're usually not going to other people that aren't in recovery and saying, guess what I'm doing. Usually you don't find people like that doing that unless they're so far out of recovery and been clean and sober for so long. For example, you've been doing this for 10 years and we're here now.
Absolutely.
But this is where we're finding the inherent issue actually in recovery. You don't see a step. Well, in a way you do. With CR, I know you do, where it says love and service. But love and service, they more into try to tie that into serving back to celebrate recovery itself. But there should be another aspect of love and service, as in dude, get your testimony out there besides CR.
Yes.
Go to other places, talk to people that don't know about addictions, don't know about your life, and tell them, dude, this is where I was, and now I'm this way.
Totally.
And that's where we see transformation. That's where you start to see that stone being turned. Where you start seeing this publicized more, because people go, oh my gosh, that's where people get their lives changed. That's how they did it. It wasn't through Jenny Craig. It was through connection, because honestly, that's all that recovery really is, and that's how people are able to stay clean and sober, is because they're connected.
Was that a 1990s plug for Jenny Craig?
Shameless.
My goodness,
Absolutely shameless.
You guys remember the 90s?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
How old were you in the 90s, Zach?
I was born in 96, so I don't remember the 90s.
You don't remember the beginning, yeah.
Holy
Crazy.
dude, I graduated high school in '93.
Man, 1993, I believe. Alice in Chains, it was like one of my favorite bands, and one of their first albums came out back then.
Like Alice in Wonderland?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I know Alice in Chains.
So, well, cool. That's a good topic and subject. And I think, we probably are just at the tip of the iceberg on even talking about this. So I'm sure we'll address that in the future. But for those of you listening in, I just feel like this is a space that we have an opportunity for, especially because COVID has been even so. Here we believe in this fundamental concept that's what the enemy means for evil, that God is going to turn over to good, and COVID is not a good thing. However, there are so many great things coming out of the opportunity that this has caused that we do have to be mindful, though, because I think that a lot of people are running to a more digital world than before, which is good and bad. So we have to be able to steward this right, I think. And so it's just the opportunity for social media and for recovery to take more of a front stage. And here's the reason why I think there's a lot of people struggling right now. My sister told me that in her AA fellowship, she has never seen so many people with like 10, 12, 15 years relapsing. And like it's like a kind of a community pandemic, if you will, within the recovery community. Now, that's not to say everybody that has all this time is relapsing. It's just that she even noticed in saying, hey, I'm concerned because there's people that are like my spiritual leaders and they're just falling like crazy. Yeah. So we will go more on there. We're going to end this segment and we're going to go to a break. So guys, stick around. We'll see you back on the other side. Thank you for listening to the Position Recovery Podcast. You can watch us on YouTube. Just search YouTube for Position Recovery. If you find our content meaningful, we encourage you to become a member. Head on over to patreon.com/position, where there are a variety of membership levels and one that is perfect for your budget. If you want to connect with us and others in the Position Recovery community, you can join our Discord or visit our Facebook page. I pray that our content blesses you in a meaningful way, and it's always awesome hanging out with you guys. We look forward to connecting with you on Patreon and other social platforms we are on. We are back. You are listening to Position Recovery Podcast with Jeremy, Zach, and Chris, aka Hephzibah. So this next segment is really interesting. This is that news article, and let me read the headline. Digital rehab is helping tackle America's opioid crisis. Here's how. And it goes on, and it gives a couple of bullet points. I'm not going to read the whole article, but it says, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen the rapid adoption of telehealth in the U.S. as regulation has been relaxed. It has also seen a rise in drug overdose deaths, many attributed to synthetic opioids. I want to talk about that in a moment after I read the rest of the points. But also, I want to talk about, maybe you know about this, Chris, where people are cutting meth with like things like fentanyl and things like that. So we are seeing a lot more overdoses for a variety of reasons. A lot of them just because more people are doing more today. But then the next point says here, digital rehab startup WorkKit Health. So WorkKit Health must be an organization. Offers group meetings and one-on-one counseling from the comfort of people's homes. It could be the key to tackling the U.S. opioid epidemic. I am going to raise my hand and say I disagree.
Thank God.
As the host of this show, I'm going to say I disagree. However, that doesn't mean I'd oppose.
Yeah.
I'm going to be neutral. What I'm going to say, here's what I disagree to. I disagree that digital online rehab is the key to the U.S. opioid epidemic. I would say, and I mean, everybody here would subscribe to the same faith, so we're gonna say that our higher power is the key. But let's entertain this a little bit and have a conversation around this in more of a practical, earthly sense, and just say, what do we think about the idea of online? Let me just stop right there and just turn it over to you guys. Online digital rehab. Go.
Obviously, I'm just going to start here. And I don't want this to be a mic drop moment, but obviously whoever came up with the idea is completely out of touch with who is coming into recovery.
Sure. Obviously,
where we're at, if you guys don't know, I'm associate pastor at Faith Foundry Church, and we have a huge hand in the recovery community. I maybe know one guy in all that we've worked with that have said, "Hey, I need to come out of addiction. I need help." That has had a phone, not just a phone, like a smartphone.
Oh,
I don't know anyone that started with a computer.
Gotcha.
And so, how can you do this type of recovery unless you're already like, I own a home, or not? You don't have to own a home. I have a computer, but like already have success in life some point, but maybe you stumbled along. This is where I see that could have a point of helping people that have had some stumbling along the way, but and they are huge into technology. Maybe their job, has them on a computer all day. That maybe this could help. Maybe this could help. I'm just saying maybe because there's a lot of caveats to this.
There is
but I'm just saying the biggest point that hit my head is like, okay, whoever made this obviously did not have in mind so-and-so we see on the street every day.
Yeah, it sounds to me like if you guys have heard of Kaiser Permanente, this is not a knock on Kaiser Permanente. I neither endorse nor oppose Kaiser Permanente, but I actually went through a Kaiser Permanente rehab when I worked for a large organization. It was completely funded, and I was given medical leave at my company. And it was like a middle class recovery, like alcoholic at home, has a normal middle class life, is having some struggles, and I go to rehab. It almost sounds to me like they're talking about those people,
it's
right?
Those people. It's the people that are addicted. It's
like
the
people that can already afford. They've already got a Mercedes. They've got like a 3-story house, and they're having a struggle. They just drank some vodka before they came to work.
I like the point where you said this could be the key from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Dude, that right there.
From the comfort of anything. That's
the word comfort does not exist when you're first coming into recovery.
Yeah.
At least it didn't for me. I was in a bad place. Like a lot of people, like almost everyone you have to...
It's frustrating, huh?
It is.
Because here,
it's really
the comfort of my own home was me sitting down, cracking, well, not a beer, it was a vodka. You think I'm going to recover in the same place that I was sitting when I was drinking vodka?
No,
especially if you're addicted to pornography, my friend.
Hey, we want you to stop looking at pornography, and now you're going to go to recovery on the computer that you were looking at pornography from.
Good luck.
Yeah, the whole digital online recovery, right there, that's disconnect.
It is.
That's disconnection. You're not connected to anyone but yourself and
a program.
A program. That's not going to work.
Recovery is not a program.
Yeah, but what? Okay, so
recovery is a connection.
Let's entertain this idea. Let me play devil's advocate and say, what about augmenting recovery? Do you see the landscape changing? Or first of all, agree or disagree? The landscape to recovery's changed.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would say there's a digital aspect that wasn't really there.
Well, it's going along with the times. Times are changing. Things are going to be different.
And even this podcast, the fact that I'm doing a YouTube channel is part of that changing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the second part of that is do you think it's possible to realistically augment? What I mean by that is, do you think that we can augment that to where it's still interactive, it's still relational, it's just done through like streaming or not streaming, but like I don't know, Skype or Zoom. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a difference between Skype and Zoom and then being in the room with the person?
I think there's a huge difference.
Okay.
Of course.
There has to be.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we actually, as part of our leadership at Faith Foundry, we had this talk because we were like, man, is there ways we can improve the stuff that we want out there? Can we have really interactive Zoom calls and all this stuff? And it's like, when it comes down to it, just like what Chris is saying, no matter what way you slice it, no matter how fancy your Zoom call, your podcast, no matter what it entails, how interactive it is, there's a disconnection. Because at the end of the day, someone's interacting with their phone screen or their computer screen.
Yeah, that's true.
There's something about, now, sorry if you guys ain't Christians watching this, but there's something about the spirit of being in the room with someone, about being in the conversation in the moment, not just hearing words, but actually it's all about relationship. And honestly, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be saying this forever.
Yeah.
This is why we see people that are in recovery for 15 years and are relapsing. It happens all the time at 15 plus years, whatever, however many years you got. It happens all the time. Why? Because most of the time these people are just in recovery and they're doing their program and they're holding on and they're not going past. Because honestly, there has to be more than just recovery. Because if we're all just in recovery, then we're all just addicts. But we're more than that. Once we overcome addiction, we can step into more. But what happens is when we're doing it on our own, the recovery on our own in our own program. For example, let's say I'm going through the rehab thing online. If I'm doing it on my own, that's just me and my own recovery. And honestly, we call that white knuckling it, because there's
and you can't white knuckle. White knuckling is all about like endurance, energy. You're gonna get tired.
Yeah.
You can't white knuckle it forever. You might be able to get a little ways, but white knuckling, there is no longevity in that.
Exactly.
And one thing I want to say about people that are having like 15 years clean and sober, and that are relapsing, out of probably 100% of the people have been disconnected. They're isolating. They become stagnant in their recovery.
Yep.
When you're in recovery, it's an everyday thing.
Yep.
I mean, when you were in your active addiction, it was an everyday thing. You didn't, not use one day because.
Totally. Well, what would you say to somebody? So somebody's watching this, dude. They relapsed after 15 years, and they're about ready to shut this channel off because they're like, it doesn't sound like.
I'm going to say, get off your couch and go to a meeting or get connected because there's some sort of disconnection.
Is there a softer way, or let's take this reality. Let's say, okay, if that whole program was supposed to work, it would have worked, and it didn't work. So can we say maybe this is an opportunity to get some buy-in and say, hey, there might be something else that's missing in my recovery that hasn't traditionally been there in what I've known about recovery. Yeah. And I would say that missing element is relationship.
Absolutely.
Would you guys agree?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So what I want to say to the audience, and I'll break away to talk to you guys for just a second. It's very key that this channel is really going to, or this podcast, whichever one you're watching, either YouTube or the podcast, that we're looking at this from a wide scope. We're not excluding anybody. So everybody in this room particularly is Christian right now, but we're not anti-you. We're not opposed to you. And we're not going to judge you for not sharing our faith system right now. But what we do recognize is that there has to be a relationship center holding this thing we call recovery together for meaningful progress. And meaningful progress it's just going to keep going, right? So you might not believe in the God of Abraham and Isaac of Jacob, or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob today, but 10 years from now is 10 years from now. So just get on the journey and stick around. And I hope that we are helpful in providing you great content influence. I do want to switch gears, and that was a provocative article, huh? They didn't know that I was going to bring up that topic.
Can I rant real quick? I'm just kidding.
yeah, go ahead. I mean, we got some time, but let's give them something. What do you want to?
No, I'm just saying, like, this is what I was feeling when you first asked the question. Like,
okay.
Oh my gosh, I could rant on this forever, because this is why recovery doesn't work for a lot of people. And because honestly, recovery programs have come down to exactly what it is, just a program. And that's what it's been boiled down to. And back what the roots of, why am I forgetting the guy's name? AA.
Bill W.
Bill W. His roots were relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've, honestly, the recovery community, most of it, including CR, honestly, has cut a lot of the relationship out of. Yeah. Not just relationship with your higher power, but it's relationship with others.
Sure.
In a way, they've cut that out. And of course, I'm not advising that guys hang out with girls, because honestly, that's a huge part of recovery, is that we, in a way, have some boundaries there, because the opposite sex can be a massive distraction to your personal growth. I'm just going to say that right now. But side topic. But like recovery as it is already, with connection, with the possibility of connection, is already really hard to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I know that honestly don't make it.
Well, one thing I want to add about the program of recovery is it only works if you work it.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some level of accountability.
So absolutely.
I mean,
there does.
if you don't have an accountability partner, someone that's going to call you out on your BS,
Sponsor.
a sponsor, work the steps. There's healing in the steps. Getting to know who you are and why you did the things that you did.
Yeah.
That's working the program.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work unless you do that.
Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to bring up, and I want to specifically ask Chris this because this is just anecdotal. There is no research that I've seen, but I know somebody who was talking about some meth related overdoses, and they simply said that it looks like people are cutting it with fentanyl. Now, I'm not really familiar with all of that. I think fentanyl is actually a legitimate drug used in medical purposes.
Yeah, it's a painkiller.
If you cut meth with fentanyl, does that change like the chemistry of that? And why are these people doing it?
It's cheap.
I
don't understand.
One thing that I would guess, fortunately, this fentanyl thing being cut with meth is fairly new.
Is it?
Like,
are people just trying to get rich and sell more? Like, are they trying to take a
there's
little bit of meth and make it more? But here's the problem. Guys, this is a marketing nightmare. From a pure business point of view, this is like, I just think about this kind of stuff, right? Like, if you're going to cut your product with something that's dangerous and it's killing the people that are buying your product from you, you won't have any customers anymore. Like, did they not think about that?
No.
Right? I mean, and I'm not trying to like.
How can you when you're addicted and all you want is to make $1? You're not thinking.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
If you were thinking about your customers, you wouldn't be selling them drugs. But in the first place,
but you know what I'm saying. Come on, man.
Yeah. No. I know you can talk more if you want in a sec. I just wanted to tag this on. I obviously wasn't addicted to drugs, but I have talked to some people about this. My wife has gone through stuff like this. She struggled with addiction as well. And it is a new thing-ish. Stuff like this has been happening though in a lot of other states. What I've found is it's really been like, oh man, it's actually hitting our community now. Mm-hmm. Stuff like this has been around for a long time, but it hasn't been popular. But what we're seeing more and more popular, and I know a couple victims of it, where it's they want to buy some cheap meth or whatever, and the people that are selling the cheap meth go, man, how can I make this cheap meth more of an immediate high so I can get my clientele to come back? Well, you got to cut it with riskier stuff. Gotcha. You got to get weirder stuff. When you get the weirder stuff, you get what happened to some people I know where next thing you know, they're in the hospital brain dead for who knows how long. Weeks. And the doctor's like, yeah, we don't know if they'll ever come back. And it's really scary because it's like, we're not talking about drugs anymore where it's like, hey, you should stop taking that drug because, you lose your mind a little bit and you're not really all there. It's more like, no, literally, you don't exist anymore. Like, you're not just walking the streets, you're in a hospital.
Yeah.
Like, we're taking a jump where it's not about where you see Joe or whatever out on the street high. It's no, he's dead because he took some meth. That's where we're at right now. And
absolutely.
It's obviously, it's never been okay. It's not okay.
Well, it's just like any street drug. You don't know what you're actually getting.
And you don't care.
And you don't at that point. I mean, you assume that you're getting what you think you're buying, but there's always that chance, and that's what happens. I don't know of one drug addict who says, I'm going to go kill myself today. He obviously got some more potent stuff than what he was used to, and did the same amount. That's how these ODs are happening. It's not, I don't think that they just don't know. Okay. They don't know what they're getting. And, that's the scary thing about being in active addiction.
I have a business background and I was mostly alcohol. So, I did some minor drug use. It was serious drug use in a minor period of time in my life. Very young, high school-ish, and I ended my meth career, or back then we called it crank. I don't even know why people call it what it was then or now.
Well, they called it crank because
I just
the
didn't know it
bikers
as meth. Like, I didn't go
stored it in their crankcases.
I didn't like
of
go
their
with my friends and go,
motorcycle.
we're going to do some meth. It was like, you got any R or a crank or whatever. But I was like 16, right? So I quit all that, moved forward in my life, joined the military, and then alcohol is like that thing that just like wrecks me. But I also have a professional business, lifestyle throughout some of that. And my mind just thinks like, dude, if the liquor store was selling something that killed everybody, there wouldn't have anything left, right? So I'm not trying to make light of it, and my heart goes out to people who are losing loved ones to this, and that's why I just wanted to talk about it and address it.
Yeah, it's because it's legal.
More to come. Yeah, I mean, I think people are probably taking advantage of the situation because another kind of business strategy is just opportunities present themselves, and COVID has created a lot of different opportunities for markets. And so maybe in the drug market, people are seeing, hey, more people are relapsing, so we're going to make more, but maybe they don't have enough, so they're cutting it to make more. Anyway, we can stop it right there. But I really wanted to. I love that news segment, man. That's probably going to be one of my favorite segments on this podcast because we get to. I get to know what it is, and then you guys don't get to know. We're going to move on to the next segment, which actually is kind of a. We don't have a next segment yet. I'm going to let you guys figure that out right now. So, introducing our next segment right now is Zach and Chris. What do you guys got?
Jeez. Chris.
Anything under the sun?
There's a lot
Anything under the sun. What did you do for your recovery today?
What did I do for my recovery today? Dude, that's a solid question.
I hosted a podcast called Position Recovery for my recovery today.
I showed up for this podcast today. That's what I did for my recovery.
Yeah. I'll start something because this is what's been on my mind lately.
What's on your heart?
It's on that topic of what I do for my recovery today. But I've been learning that this is also why I like Celebrate Recovery because we celebrate recovery. I love that. I love that idea and that aspect behind it. But on a personal level, God's been talking to me and he's like, hey, and I've been getting it from kind of everywhere. That's how he talks to me in a way. One of the ways he affirms me by showing me it comes from all angles, right? Is that if I would begin to celebrate myself more, I would begin to see more breakthrough in my life. I'm not just talking about recovery. I'm talking about every aspect. Because honestly, again, like I said, we got to move past recovery at some point. We can't just stay in recovery forever. Even though we all have overcome something, we're not all always overcoming the same thing forever. But back to what I was saying, that if I began to just celebrate myself more, that God was like, you're going to see more breakthrough. And I think I've even heard Jeremy say it, Jeremy Gramman, not Jeremy Grogan. But but I began to think like, man, I don't know how to celebrate myself. Like, obviously a lot of people can think, well, I know how to celebrate myself. I'm going to grab me a tub of ice cream. I'm going to go turn on my favorite TV show. And in a way, that's how I always used to celebrate myself. But it's like
along the lines of some self-care.
Yeah, self-care. But it's like, in a way, I wouldn't call that really good celebration, is breaking away and enabling yourself to do something. Oh, some people can say, I'm going to go celebrate and go grab a beer. No, that ain't,
Yeah, probably.
But, yeah, don't.
Hey, I'm going to celebrate 3 years of sobriety with the beer. Come on.
I've known people that done that.
My goodness.
But,
that stinking thinking, dude.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Smelling.
Stinking thinking.
But like, it's just like along the lines of the question you asked, what have you done for yourself in your recovery today? It's like, well, how can I begin to celebrate myself? Like what's some ways that I can begin to celebrate myself? Because let's be honest, we all struggle a little bit on our own self-reflection.
Sure.
Like, it's really encouraging and really good for you every day to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, Zach, you are awesome. You're doing an amazing job. You're clean and sober. You have a job. List all the gratitudes. In a way, that's a way of celebrating yourself.
Yeah,
in a way,
yeah.
and it's like, man, if I can
important.
begin to celebrate myself in every aspect of my life, I can begin to grow. And I know last week when we did Elevate Recovery, in the meetings we have here in this building, I actually addressed that as a question.
Yeah, you did.
What's some ways
familiar,
you can begin to celebrate yourself? And I've been doing that in a way all day at work too, because when you keep that in your mind all day, it's like, man, what are some awesome things I'm doing right now? Your attitude changes, especially when you're in a crappy work environment. Your attitude changes.
I'm glad you bring that up because I thought about this actually, and I haven't talked to you about it since then. But when you started talking about that, I'm thinking, it was theologically challenging me a little bit, and then the Lord was like, okay, you know what? There is a scripture, and it says, "Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, that itself doesn't address this, but here's what does address it. The implication is that you're supposed to love yourself.
Yep.
If I'm supposed to love my neighbor the way that I love myself, then that means I'm supposed to love myself. But guys, just be honest, doesn't that seem a little weird? Like, I know that people listening right now are like, just the thought. I'm not saying that it is weird or not. I'm saying the thought of it, for people who aren't comfortable with it or used to it, the thought of having an affection or this, using the word I love myself, almost seems like blasphemy. But the scripture says, love your neighbor as yourself. And what you're saying is that before you can even love your neighbor, you have to have this appreciation or love of the self. And I would say the way that I would answer that or recognize this, because I'm not there yet totally like you are, but I've gone through that processing, which is the Lord gave me that scripture. I think of it more as celebrating the work and the transformation that I've walked through. And in that sense, I love who I have become. Yeah. Right? Not to the degree where I'm like looking in myself in the mirror going, I love myself. And like,
well, that's a little bit arrogant.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I wouldn't say it's arrogant.
You
can look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself.
Yeah, but I don't just go, man, I love myself.
And this is a great conversation because like, I'm just telling you that when I think of it right now, if there's another level, then cool. But right now, what I do is I look back and I go, man, what a work God did. Because, I mean, like in all honesty and all reality and the way that I've lived my life, I should be dead. I deserved to be dead. And God brought this life. No, okay. He took a terrible, miserable pile of flesh and like gave it purpose and breathed a new life into it, if that makes any sense.
And then we have to cultivate that, which is to remain in a positive space, which, to love yourself, it is good. Like I do love myself today. I didn't think very highly of myself 2 years ago. It was negative. I was in a negative space. Now I remain and choose to remain in a positive space, regardless of what's happening around me or in my own life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
We need to celebrate ourselves is to remain joyful. Take hardships as the pathway to peace, man. That's the hard one, Yeah. But find joy in everything. Yeah. And to always, regardless of where you are in your recovery, I think we should all celebrate milestones. Look back at where we used to be and where we are now, and take yourself out to dinner, you and your wife. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Celebrate the fact that we're not homeless. Yeah. We're not high or drunk today. And continue to do that throughout your whole life.
What about somebody who doesn't subscribe to this idea that transformation is possible, but they are working an honest program? They're really working this. What kind of things can they do to celebrate the work that's going on in their life without like being selfish and saying, I did this? Like, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to kind of make a bridge, if you will, between this is who I was, some things are happening, and things are changing, and it couldn't have been myself, yet maybe they're not honoring God yet. What are some things that they can do to be able to go celebrate that?
Well, I think if you're working a program, you're going to learn a lot about humility and remain humble. That takes away the whole, yes, I did this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because when you're in recovery, it is a we program. We don't do this. We don't do it alone. We have sponsors. We have relationships with other people in the recovery community, and we stay connected. We're building on those relationships. Yeah. Keep your ego and your pride. All those things need to, you got to remain humble.
Yeah. There is an aspect to it, though, where you did do it. Like, but not from the willpower sense, because it's like my sponsor didn't get me clean and sober. I got clean and sober from the help of my sponsor, from the help of XYZ, and God was the one that gave me the ability to even do it in the first place. Absolutely. But there's a place where, for example, excuse me, where we need to recognize and give credit to ourselves to an extent. Of course, we don't want to start there and end there where it's like, hey, this is all me. This is all me. Look how awesome I'm doing. Look how awesome I'm doing. And to be honest, I was thinking about this while you guys were talking, but it's like, I don't know many people that are what we would say cocky. Because I've known a lot that portray themselves as they're all that and a bag of chips, you know. But those are the people that would never look in the mirror and tell themselves how awesome they are.
Yeah.
Because those are the exact people who look in the mirror and tell themselves how awful they are. And they're just portraying themselves in public as more than what because they have to try to measure up, right?
Gotcha.
But in a way, that's how I celebrate myself. In a way, it's hard though, because I've always struggled with, self-image. And if you guys don't know, I have that tattooed on my hand that I love myself. This is a pretty big topic for me. But that all started, you know where that came from? That didn't come from me going, hey, I need to tell myself I love myself more. It came from me actually verbally forgiving myself.
Gotcha.
Because I bet there's a lot of people out there that are going to watch this, that are going to relate to this. But I found it really easy to forgive other people, but I just wore the weight of all that on myself. I just blamed myself for everything. I had huge expectations of myself. And so when I was going through recovery and we go through the steps where you're forgiving other people, I was like, dude, done. Checklist. I did it. I did the step. I didn't just skip it. I did it. But it was easy. I was like, cool. Awesome. I'm glad I did that because I don't want to have unforgiveness in my life. And then my wife was like, well, have you ever forgiven yourself? And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't need to do that. It's not on the list,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so she's like, well, I dare you to verbally forgive yourself. And so I did it. And I remember that was probably the biggest breakthrough of my life. I just sat there in a puddle of tears because I was like, oh my gosh.
And folks, we thank you, Zach. We're going to end it right there. We're about out of time. I just wanted to say to the viewers, if you appreciate the podcast and you want to help support us, go to the Position Recovery YouTube channel. You can click on any video there, and in the description box are all the ways that you can support. I could tell you them all right now, but I would really appreciate you to just go check out the description box. We have merchandise that you can purchase that helps support it. There's Patreon, patreon.com/positioned. I love that. I love how easy that is. And you can become a member. There will be exclusive content. Please be patient with us as we grow and as stuff starts coming online. But we're so excited to be part of your recovery. Thank you for being part of ours. Remember, until next time, guys, many are called, but you are positioned.
Positioned.